UPS needs to remember that their past failings to protect workers can have deadly consequences in the future. More than 20 heat-related workplace fatalities in Texas this year alone.
Every week, bosses are breaking the law and injuring their employees. So these are the illegal activities of Southern bosses for the week ending on September the 1st. Starting in Alabama, this is a fascinating story. Last year, in the summer of 2022, Brett Savage, a 36-year-old communications technician with the Alabama Forestry Commission and a resident of Deatsville in Elmore County, was killed instantly when the communications tower he was helping a crew remove unexpectedly fell on top of him in Washington County. Savage had only worked for the agency for 3 months, and he left behind his wife and 5 children. Last week, an unlikely outlet highlighted the story of his family trying to get accountability. That outlet was 1819 News. And the article was, it was really genuinely good. Like, actually really good. An article that you would, if I had read that in a real news outlet, I would have believed it, that it was a real news outlet doing this. But, credit where it's due. So here's what 1819 News reported. Dusty Savage, Brett Savage's older brother, said the family has not been given a lot of details about what happened, and they want to know how this kind of incident will be prevented in the future. They also want the public to know that the loss they have suffered. 1819 said that the family reports having contacted several agencies and people involved, but they say nobody is taking responsibility. Savage also claims that his brother did not have any kind of training to do that kind of work. And that makes sense. He'd only been on the job for 3 months. Because the Occupational Safety and Health Act exempts state and municipal governments, and because Alabama, unlike many states, does not have our own version of the Occupational Safety and Health Act, the OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, which is a specialized body focused on safety and health, they could not investigate the incident. Instead, the local sheriff's office supposedly investigated and told the wife that her husband's death was, quote, accidental. Here's a quote from 1819 News that they had from the brother. I think they should be held accountable because, honestly, anybody else in Alabama would be in jail. If you were out there with no certifications doing that and somebody got killed, the people responsible would be in jail. I'm not trying to get anybody put in jail, but this doesn't need to happen to other people, and they shouldn't be exempt from an OSHA investigation just because they're a state agency. We could not agree with him more on that, even though, unfortunately, the brother is wrong about the consequences that private employers would face for killing somebody, but at the very least, unlike state agencies, it wouldn't be nothing. So, kudos to 1819 News for reporting that, and best of luck to the brother.
Right, and we need to get that changed in Montgomery. Absolutely.
On coal miners, the U.S. Department of Labor announced last week that its Mine Safety and Health Administration completed impact inspections at 15 mines in 12 states in July of 2023, issuing 288 violations and 4 safeguard notices. Among the 288 violations that MSHA found in July, the agency evaluated 82 as significant and substantial, which are reasonably likely to cause reasonably serious injury or illness, and found 1 to have an unwarranted failure finding, which is an aggravated conduct that constitutes more than ordinary negligence. The agency completed inspections at mines in Alabama, Alaska, California, Colorado, Idaho, Iowa, Kentucky, New York, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and West Virginia. From July the 17th to the 18th in 2023, MSHA conducted an impact inspection at Buzzy Unicems USA's Lone Star Pryor Plant Mill and Quarry in Mays, Oklahoma. Selected given its previous enforcement history, so this mine has previous run-ins with the law, the mine's operator was cited for 53 violations again. after having already been cited for violations in the past. Among them, 25 were significant and substantial violations. Specifically, the agency found that Buzzy Unisem USA's violations included exposing miners to hazards related to energized electrical conductors, accumulated combustible materials, and improperly maintained firefighting equipment. The mine has been cited in the past for allowing exposed electrical conductors and for permitting waste or rags with flammable or combustible liquids to create a fire hazard. And failures to install and maintain guards, provide a safe means of access to work areas, store materials properly, identify chemicals in use with proper labels, and to maintain compressed air systems as required. MSHA had found that the mine operator allowing many of these conditions to exist before the July impact inspection. Earlier this year, the agency issued a hazard alert related to hazardous chemicals and continues to raise awareness about this issue. Heading over to Texas, Chris Begley, a UPS Teamster of 28 years with local 767 and father of two, died after a sweltering shift 4 days after 4 days of trying to recover and 1 day in the hospital. The Teamsters said in a statement, last week the Teamsters ratified our national master agreement at UPS that includes air conditioning in new vehicles, retrofitting of existing vehicles with heat shields, fans, and cargo ventilation, and a new safety and health committee to enforce company violations. While these improvements will make a difference in the months and years ahead, we had to fight like hell to secure them. Chris Begley should still be alive to experience them. All companies, including UPS, need to remember that their past failings to protect workers can have deadly consequences in the future. OSHA told NBC News that it has opened investigations into more than 20 heat-related workplace fatalities in Texas this year alone. This came only days after a Texas law that eliminated municipalities' abilities to enforce water breaks through local ordinances went into effect.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
In Tennessee, unfortunately, Brother Begley was not the only Teamster to die from the heat last week. Tony Rufus, an 11-year Kroger distribution center worker in Memphis and member of Teamsters Local 667, also died from heat illness. They said that he went to produce to try to cool off after a long shift, and that's where he passed out and died in front of all of his coworkers. According to The Guardian, this comes after the union had asked the company to allow more breaks and cooler working conditions to no avail. After his death, members of Local 667 are asking that management sit down with them to work out new heat protections to prevent this from happening again. But Kroger has not made any commitments to bargain in good faith over changes, much less committed to any concrete changes themselves. We had several dishonorable mentions. A FedEx customer in Oklahoma said she saw her delivery person collapse in her yard. The customer and their neighbors brought the driver ice packs to help him cool down, offered to call 911, but the driver called the boss instead, who then began to yell at the driver, chiding him for not having drank more Gatorade and to get back to work after 30 minutes of rest. The neighbors urged the driver to call 911 after no improvement, but he called his boss instead again, who again yelled at him and told him not to call an ambulance. Fortunately, the neighbors called an ambulance and the driver got medical attention. 2 federal investigators have recovered $540,000 in wages for 268 H-2A workers from a father and son then operating as North Carolina farm labor contractors, whose violations of federal laws included failing to pay some workers their full wages, to provide safe and adequate housing, and to reimburse workers transportation costs. U.S. Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division investigators found Patel Shippers, LLC, which provides fruits and vegetables from India and Asia to grocery stores in 10 states, including Florida, denied 25 workers overtime wages by paying them straight time rates for all hours worked, including for hours over 40 in a work week. The employer also failed to pay 3 workers at least the federal minimum wage by not keeping an accurate record of hours worked. The Department of Labor recovered $71,000 in back wages and damages. The U.S. Department of Labor has cited Houston, Texas area engine component manufacturer Air Starter Components again for failing to correct safety hazards that caused an employee's finger amputation in March of 2022. OSHA proposed $127,000 in penalties after its follow-up inspection and $171,000 in penalties for failing to remedy the 2022 violations, for a total of $298,000 in proposed penalties. One person is dead and 2 are injured after a workplace accident at Warrior Met Coal last week. The Mine Safety and Health Administration and the union, the United Mine Workers of America, are investigating. A Guntersville man died Thursday night at a workplace accident, according to authorities. Coleman County Coroner Jeremy Kilpatrick said that Michael Thompson, 38, died in the incident at Coleman Casting on County Road 490. The incident happened shortly after 10:30 p.m. The body has been sent to the Department of Forensic Sciences for an autopsy, and police are investigating. The Environmental Protection Agency and the U.S. Department of Justice announced that Japan-based Tadano Limited and its subsidiaries will pay a $40 million civil penalty and contribute an additional $3.2 million to reduce diesel emissions to resolve allegations that it violated Title II of the Clean Air Act. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB, sued Southern, a high-cost installment lender, for illegal loan churning practices that harvested hundreds of millions of dollars in loan costs and fees. The CFPB alleges that the company identifies borrowers who are struggling to repay their existing loans and then aggressively pushes them to refinance. Borrowers become trapped in the loan churning scheme and often are forced to refinance multiple times. The CFPB is seeking to end Southern's unlawful loan churning practices, to gain redress for harmed consumers, and to require Southern to pay a civil money penalty. The Federal Reserve Board on Tuesday fined Regions approximately $2.95 million for unsafe and unsound practices in its flood insurance compliance program and for flood insurance regulatory violations. And that is going to be it for us today.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.